Hello, everyone, and hope you're having an amazing day. Today, I'm going to discuss traveling with a disability. It's really a whole different aspect, right? Where in regular set life standards and stuff like that, where you don't have to worry about someone with a disability in your family traveling. You just get your stuff together, make sure you have your hotel, you have your vehicle, whatever you need to travel properly. With us, it's a lot more complex. We've got to make sure that we have our medication, know where we can pick up our medication should we need it. And also back when my daughter was on dialysis, that was even more complex. So I'm going to discuss just kind of what we had to run through as far as hoops in order to make sure that our family members remain safe, especially during travel. So hello. For those of you guys that are new to my channel, on Mondays I do videos all about fashion, accessories, just stuff that I enjoy doing to keep my mind off of the second half of the week videos, which are all about TSC and FSGS. TSC being tuberous sclerosis complex, or tumors that grow in different major organs throughout your body, and FSGS being a form of kidney disease that causes damage to the glomeruli, which unfortunately can lead to kidney disease, kidney failure. Eventually, you'd probably need a transplant. So if you're interested in either or, please hit the little subscribe button and hit the little bell so you can be notified on all of my latest videos. And please don't forget to hit the like button and comment below so you can help me with the algorithm gods and help me to continue to grow my channel. Not only that, I also want to hear what you're going through and if you have any questions about today's video. So let's get started. So I think our biggest challenge was dialysis. For those of you guys that are still on dialysis, you definitely understand how difficult it is to find the right clinic, especially, or the best clinic possible or available, especially when you're traveling out of state. So even when even if you're traveling within a city, from one city to another within your same state, it's still very challenging. What we found, especially when my oldest daughter received her, let's say, for example, her Make-A-Wish foundation, we ended up going to Disney. So we had to work with our current clinic to make sure that all of her arrangements were set when we went to that vacation, because it was a week long, and she had to get dialysis 3 times a week. Now, in that scenario, it was a lot more fluid, and the reason why was because they're set up for that. So in the Make-A-Wish Foundation, whenever you travel to a location or you go wherever you need to go to get your treatment, the Make-A-Wish Foundation works very good with different locations like hospitals and clinics and stuff like that. So they're very well versed in what's going to be needed in order to make sure that that child with the disability is going to be okay. So in those scenarios, those are way easier, right? So when we let them know, hey, this is going to be our travel days, they immediately called my daughter's clinic. All they needed was her information, make sure they had everything accurate. They needed to make sure there was a seat available in order for her to get her dialysis during that time that she was traveling to their location. So that was probably one of the most easiest processes out of all the other traveling arrangements that we had to do for her. So she did end up having to travel, for example, often to New Jersey, because that's where we were originally from, and she still has family out there. So whenever she goes out there, she calls the same clinic. Now, initially, when we had to set it up, there was weeks on end of having to get paperwork faxed over, having to get the signatures that are needed or required in order to confirm that she's going to be traveling. They also need to make sure that she has a chair to get her dialysis treatment. But the biggest factor, right, my daughter used to like to go early in the morning to get her dialysis session done, but on some occasions that time's not available. So unfortunately she is tied to what it is available. So sometimes it's a late afternoon, so she doesn't get out till 7-8 o'clock, which is a lot more difficult. Where she used to like to get in at 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and get out early so that she can have the rest of the day to just kind of regenerate, right? Because it's very difficult. Once you get your dialysis treatment, it does take a lot out of you. So she preferred to do it during the morning, early morning, and then have it done. So the biggest challenges when it comes to finding a clinic is obviously, how do you research these clinics to make sure that they are good? So on a lot of times you'll look on Google and you'll see, hey, they have good reviews, they have this. But you want to definitely call the clinic and make sure that, hey, what's your availability? How many people do normally get the dialysis treatment in the morning? Is it really packed? what are your health standards, as far as like, are you required to wear a mask if you're sick? What do you need as far as am I allowed to travel? Am I allowed to bring a blanket and pillow? Because my daughter used to like to wear to use a blanket and pillow because of comfort, right? It's really difficult with those chairs. They're very uncomfortable. So when you're sitting there for 3 hours, 4 hours, you definitely want to be able to be comfortable. Also, you want to make sure that where they're located, parking is easy, because there are certain clinics that the parking is really bad. So you're traveling around trying to find a parking location, especially in the inner cities. So those are all very important items to kind of look for, especially when you're working with a clinic. You also want to see what's their response time when it comes to paperwork. Are they pretty quick with it? Do they take weeks? Do they take months? So if you're looking at a clinic that you're very interested in going to, if you're traveling out of state or any other city, what you want to do is, what is the response time, as far as like how far ahead do you need in order to be able to get dialysis treatment at that clinic. Certain clinics, it does require at least 2 weeks. There are other clinics where you can do a quick turnaround, and they do have the seating available. But on many occasions, this is not something that is feasible, so you'll end up having to go to the hospital to get dialysis, which there was an emergency situation where we had, and she did have to have it in the hospital. So you have to be really very diligent when it comes to being prepared. If you have to travel for an emergency, if you have to travel for a last minute, make sure that you find a clinic that not only is very reputable. You don't want to go something that is not the best clinics, obviously in a bad area, or they're not very attentive to you. So you want to make sure that you not only do the research, check the ratings, speak to the clinic, work with your social worker, make sure that that person interacts with the clinic as well, to ensure that they feel comfortable as well. Get their input and let kind of figure out what is the best course of action. Is this the right place for you to go in order for you to get your treatment? So that's a big part of it. Make sure that the nurses are more than capable. Don't be afraid to ask how long have your nurses been here or been doing this. It's not against the law for you to ask, and it also makes you feel, if it makes you feel a little bit more comfortable, you should never be afraid to ask, because this is your health, or the health of your child, your family member, whoever it is. You want to make sure that they are properly set up for you, and make sure that they know what they're doing, right? You don't want somebody messing, especially when you're looking at 10 gauge needles. You definitely don't want someone that just started working on your arm. So that was one of the biggest challenges. But I'll never forget one of the instances that my daughter ran into. She was going to travel to California. Now, she went and she took a plane out to California. She was supposed to meet her cousin. Her cousin ended up, unfortunately, had several delays, and her flight was eventually canceled. So my daughter was sitting out there in California alone, and she had to, for 2-3 weeks, arrange a clinic out there, with her clinic out here in the South and having to arrange that out there in the West Coast. So it was a back and forth for several weeks. She had to figure out where the clinic was to where she was located. She had to make sure that the clinic was available, that she was able to get a chair there, that they were going to be able to manage her overall for those 3 days. She had to make sure that she was going to be able to have a vehicle to take her to and bring her back. So that was going to be a huge challenge, right? So she knew that her cousin was going to be there, so it was going to be a lot easier, because she can make sure that she stays on top of her, to ensure that she was going to be okay when she got out of there, make sure that she wasn't going to be exhausted or not feeling well. But since her cousin had missed her flight and her dialysis session was set for the next day, that was going to be a huge, she became a huge burden, or she was very nervous and very scared, because she was out there alone and she wasn't going to have somebody there to care for her after the fact. So she had to rush back. So myself and my daughter, we were back and forth on the call. I got her into another hotel, because where she was staying, the Airbnb, which is another story, was in a really bad location that they were going to stay in. So I actually called to get her into another hotel, to get her into a good hotel near the airport, so she can grab her flight and come back. And as you know, it's a very long flight. So we had to, again, call back the clinic over here in the South. She had to find a way to get her chair back, which was a whole process, because once you give up your chair in your clinic, or it's just overall, the biggest challenge is trying to get it back, because they give that chair to someone else that wants that her shift. Like, she had a really good shift, she had an early shift, so as soon as it became available, she had to then take an afternoon shift, which was really frustrating because she had been doing it for so long and she had worked her way up into that shift. So but she understood because of the changing in arrangements and stuff like that. So that was a huge challenge, very scary, because she was out there alone, and knowing that she had to get dialysis, and just weather conditions just caused the full panic. She was very fortunate she was able to get her money back for certain things, but obviously she lost a lot of money too on that trip. But lessons learned, let's just put it like that. It was really a difficult scenario, but if you do, just note that if you are in dialysis, you give up your chair for any amount of time, it's going to be really hard for you to get back that shift. Obviously, if they have the availability, the clinics are more than happy to work with you, but if they don't, then you'll have to probably change a different shift. And if they don't have any availability at that clinic, you can ask them for a sister clinic to see if you can get in. If not, then you'll probably have to go to the hospital to get your dialysis session. Now, there are occasions where you can probably go a day without the dialysis, then you'll have to do it the next day on your off day, obviously, but then you're going to be doing back to back, which is very draining and very exhausting, and that's what she ended up having to do, because she missed that day because she was traveling. She then had to do it the next day, and then she had to do back to back, which really, I recall her being really, really exhausted. So that was definitely a huge one for us, just in dealing with all that. And it's very, very, like I said, if you do have a disability, especially like kidney disease, it's very, very hard to travel. So even if you, for example, if you were doing it from home, now you have to travel with all that equipment. So that adds a whole different layer of it. It's almost easier to travel if you're doing it at the clinic versus at home, because you're definitely looking at lugging a lot of luggage, and it becomes even more of the whole process itself becomes very cumbersome. So another big process that we have to deal with, especially when traveling, is the medication, right? Ensuring that we have enough of our medication whenever we travel is our top priority. Sometimes, on occasion, the medication we don't need it, right? We have a lot, and the doctor, and unfortunately we don't have a refill available to us. And unfortunately, when you travel, and then you have to get your medication because you've been traveling for 3 weeks, right? Like my daughter, what ends up happening is you have to get your medication at, let's say, for example, if you're doing Walgreens here, you'll have to get it out of Walgreens over there. Or if, because it's the easiest way to do it, obviously, because it's the same company. The only thing is that your medication will have to be transferred to that other location. So there is good and bad to that, right? Good thing is that they can transfer the medication. Bad thing is that it will delay the process, right? But we have run into an occasion where here they'll have the medication available in this state, but in the other state they don't have the medication available, so it does delay the process even longer. Insurances tend to be annoying sometimes, because they see that you're in another state and they're saying, hey, why do you need to get medication out here? And then you have to explain back and forth. But it has been okay. It's just a lot. There's just a lot, right? Especially, just remembering everything, making sure that everything's on point, making sure that the doctors understand that, if you need, how about if you need a whole new refill, then they have to send it over to that Walgreens or wherever you do it, your prescriptions. But that has been a couple of issues that we've dealt with. Another issue is that, like, let's say my youngest daughter, if she's traveling without me, a big part of the process is making sure that I write down everything for whoever's going to be watching her. So it's hard for a kid with a disability traveling at a young age, because a lot of times and I never really do it because I don't put that burden on someone else, having to hand off the list of medications, what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and making sure that she stays on top of it. That's also been a huge challenge for us. And I think a bigger part of that is my insecurities when it comes to, I don't know if insecurities is the proper word, but my inability to control the scenario or the situation. It becomes a very stressful scenario. I want her to have fun. I want her to travel. I want her to do her thing. But I also want to be able to feel that that person that's going to be in charge of her, or helping her and make sure she does everything right, understands what to do. I also have to give them emergency medication to make sure that if there is an urgency where if there is a scenario where she has a seizure and she's locked in, they know how to give her emergency medication. So yeah, so those are probably the biggest items that I struggle with, especially when traveling with kids with disabilities. Okay, so thank you guys for listening in. I hope you enjoyed my video today on travels with disabilities. If you have any questions or any concerns, feel free to shoot me a comment. Don't be afraid to. So please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell so you can be notified on all of my latest videos. And please don't forget to focus through and evolve.